This will be a simple video that shows you a bunch of ways that you can control the motion of an object. Like I said in the first video, don't try and type along as I go. Watch the video in short segments, and if you want to, you can pause it and try and retype it without looking at the video, because that's the best way to learn. Alright, so let's start by just sending the player off in a random direction. Here in setup, I'll say player.set random direction, and I'll say player.set random speed, and the speed will be between 3 and 6. And when I run it, you'll see what happens. Okay? Okay? Okay. Let's do something more helpful. Let's say that I want my player's x-coordinate to be the same as my mouse x-coordinate. I can say player.setx, and let's see, acceleration, speed, position, set x position. So I'll set that to be the same as mouse x, which is the variable that holds the position of my mouse. Now when I run it, you see it tracks my mouse very nicely. Let's do what we did in class, which is make it follow the mouse. So to do that, first I have to figure out what direction does it have to move in. So I'll say player.getDirectionToward, and I want the direction towards mouse x, mouse y. But remember, I have to save that somewhere, so I'll save it into a variable called angle. Now that I have the angle, I can say player.setVelocity, and I give it a direction and a speed. So the direction I want to go in is the angle that I just asked about, and the speed I can set to be 3. Now when I run it, it will chase my mouse around at a speed of 3. What if I want it to go faster the further away it is? Step 1 is I have to ask it, how far away is it? So I'll save it in a variable called distance, and I'll say player.getDistance to mouse x, mouse y. So now I've got what angle do I have to go in to get to the mouse, and what distance am I away from the mouse. And I want my speed to be related to the distance. So I'll say, if I just say my speed equals my distance, that's going to go so fast that it's almost like tracking me. So instead, let's set my speed to be like distance divided by something like maybe 20. So now I've got a kind of a nice behavior where it'll go fast, but as it gets close, it'll slow down. In class, we had done a nice thing to make this visually more interesting by saying player.setRotation speed, and I'd set the rotation speed to be something like 0.1. And remember, if you see an error, hover over to see what it says. This says float is what I need to have as an input, but I'm giving it a double. So again, we talked about this in class, but you can cast it to float by writing float in parentheses right before the number. Now it looks a little bit more interesting because it's spinning around as it follows my mouse. Let's do one more variation on this. Instead of setting the velocity, what happens if I accelerate it towards my mouse? So I'll say player.accelerate in direction. That's another option. And notice here, the first input needs to be the amount of acceleration, and the second is the direction. So the amount of acceleration, all set to be 0.5. And the direction will be the angle of my mouse. So now I get some interesting bouncing behavior. It looks like it's bouncing further and further off the screen, though. Maybe I want to add something that's going to slow it down a little bit. There's a command that you might not have noticed, player.addDrag. The drag amount can be anything between 0 and 100, so I'll add maybe 20 drag. And drag just continually decelerates it. So now this has sort of reduced the bouncing effect. Let's finish this video off by talking about how you can control it with the mouse. Sorry, the keyboard. So I'll delete all this because I don't want to do that anymore. If I scroll down, I see key pressed. If a key is coded, that means it's a special key, like an arrow key. And here I'm checking if the key code is the up key, the down key, and so on. So let's say if I hit the up key, I'll say player.move, and you see I can move up, down, left, or right by certain distances. So maybe if I move up by 10 pixels, when I run it, you'll see that now as I hold down the arrow key, I move up. Maybe you want it to do something different. Maybe pressing up, you want it to actually move, like start moving. So here I'll say player.set. I want to set the Y velocity. Oops. So you see set Y speed is an option. So I'll set the Y speed to be up. What's up? That seems like negative. So I'll set the Y speed to be -3. So now when I press up, it just starts moving, and I don't have to hold down the key in order to do that. The problem now is, if I'm not pressing a key, I want it to stop moving. If you want to do that, down here in key released, you can say player.set Y speed to 0 and player.set X speed to 0. So the idea is, as long as you're pressing a key, you'll be moving, and then as soon as you release a key, you'll stop. Let's try that. Press, release, press, release.